I'm Riley,
And I'm Ronnie,
and this is the Plan to Eat podcast.
where we have conversations about meal planning, food, and wellness to help you answer the question, what's for dinner? Hello, and welcome back to the Plan to Eat podcast. We are back with another week of our Meal Plan Like a Pro series. And today we are going back to the beginning. We're talking about your first 3 weeks of meal planning and how that can look and how you can get started meal planning successfully.
Okay, so if you are an overwhelmed listener and you are doing your very best to get started with meal planning, after listening to this episode, we want you to just feel like you can start and be successful.
Yeah. Meal planning can definitely feel overwhelming at first, especially if you're not a planner personality like Riley and I boast.
Well, we are expert planners, but even experienced planners, there are weeks where meal planning feels so daunting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that, in general, one of the main things that we would like you to just take away from this is that taking action is going to lead to confidence in your meal planning. So just get started. And hopefully today we will help give you some tips to feel confident in getting started.
So, to get started, we suggest that you pick a simple framework. So, we've talked about several of these kinds of things in the last couple of weeks, different kind of frameworks for how to get started. So, if you want to go back and listen to those, I highly recommend it. But ultimately, keeping it simple is key. Don't plan every single day. I don't plan every single day, and I don't plan every single meal. Because that is, in my world, just not sustainable. And I would consider myself like a solid meal planner.
Totally. Yeah. I don't plan every single day or every single meal either. And part of that is because I end up with too much food. If I do that, too much food that potentially goes to waste. It also, then you feel like you're tied to your meal plan rather than being able to just live your life. Because if you've planned something every single night of the week, then you think, okay, well, we don't have any room for flexibility in here. I can't move anything around to spontaneously go out to eat or go over to a friend's house when they invite us. So keeping it simple and not planning every single day, super key. We talked about this a few episodes ago of just the idea of maybe starting by planning 2 or 3 recipes in a week. And I think that particularly if you're new, that's a great place to start.
I feel like the question for a new meal planner that's listening to this episode is, but what do you do for lunch and dinner? If you don't
Mm,
every single meal every day, how do you handle the other meals? What do you do, Ronnie?
I love that question. For breakfast is just basically staple items. I eat a lot of the same things for breakfast. I get in like breakfast ruts where I only eat one thing for like months and months and months for breakfast. Right now, it's just yogurt and granola. For a really long time, it was like a savory cottage cheese bowl. So it was like cottage cheese, fresh vegetables, olive oil, and salt. I still love that. It's super good. For a long time, it was like scrambled eggs and toast. So it's just stuff that you can basically keep on hand. And, if I run out of yogurt, I'm fine with eating eggs instead. For me, for lunch, I often will eat leftovers of whatever we had for dinner the night before. If we don't have anything, I'll make like a tuna sandwich or something, or an egg salad sandwich, maybe. My husband will pretty much eat the same thing for lunch on repeat. So, like the whole summer, he ate like a buffalo chicken salad for lunch. And now he's kind of transitioned back into eating sandwiches for lunch. And I don't know, as winter gets colder, he'll probably switch to something else. So it's basically like breakfast and lunch are very predictable in our household.
Do you fix your spouse breakfast?
No, he usually doesn't eat breakfast. He just drinks a cup of coffee and leaves.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I think part of my thought process behind asking these questions is like your meal plan is different than my meal planning life.
Yeah.
You're planning and cooking for your spouse for breakfast. Like I often don't make my husband breakfast either. He either eats his own thing at whatever time he wants to eat it, which is never when the kids are hungry, or he just doesn't eat also. So like I'm not usually ever making him food. I don't plan in my meal plan for him to have breakfast.
Yeah.
Like he'll eat what's here, but he's not like picking it out.
Yeah.
The kids, on the other hand, like what I'll do is sometimes I'll ask them, like, "What do you guys wanna have for breakfast this week?" And, like, maybe that's an English muffin, and, like, it's an English muffin and scrambled eggs, or it's an English muffin with butter and yogurt, or, like, fruit. But I'll just pick a couple of things, and then we'll have that for breakfast until it's gone, and then maybe the next week we'll rotate it out. I'm not maybe once a week, I'll make, like, a full-blown breakfast, like,
Yeah.
what works pancakes or waffles and bacon or sausage and eggs and, fruit galore and the whole thing. But that's like once a week.
Well, and then what do you guys do for lunch?
I talk about on this podcast sometimes that I ask my family what they want to eat for meals. And my daughter literally only ever wants to eat sandwiches for lunch and hamburgers for dinner. Those are her only two suggestions ever. And that's what she has for lunch almost every day. She loves a sandwich, likes it the way she likes it. I'll usually make a salad for myself with some kind of protein. Very rarely do I eat a sandwich. Or I eat leftovers, and so, like, that's my constant is I am the primary leftover consumer in our home, and so if I have leftovers, like, that's just like, "Okay, well, that's my lunch tomorrow. Cool," because nobody else wants it.
Yeah. So I was thinking one of the biggest questions that we get related to getting started with meal planning is like, I don't know what recipes to choose for my meal plan,
Yeah,
right? So how do you decide on what recipes you're going to put in your meal plan every week?
great question. Text you. So, I either just kind of go through, like, what my family likes. Like, okay, I know we like these are my family favorites in my recipe book. Or I'll ask the audience, "Hello, family, what do you guys wanna eat this week?" Or, "We have friends coming over for dinner this night. What do you guys think we should cook for them when they're here?" And then we kinda all collaborate, mostly me and my husband, but I usually give everybody a little bit of a voice. Like, if there's something that they want to eat, then I'll let them say, like, "I want hamburgers," and we'll have a variety of types of hamburgers because that is her favorite food. And then I text a friend because sometimes this week in particular, I dried up, I think is the phrase that I said to you in a text message.
Yes.
I just had nothing. I had nothing. I had no excitement, no energy. I didn't even wanna eat when I was meal planning, Like, I had nothing inside of me that was, like, ready to do it, and so I just asked you, and that is honestly how I kinda build it out. There are weeks where I do it based on what we have in our house, like, "Okay, we have these canned goods, we need to eat these," or, "We have this protein in the freezer, we need to thaw and cook that," and so sometimes I base it on that. I do it in a variety of ways, but that keeps it really interesting for me.
Yeah, I would say I'm fairly similar. I don't have as many people to ask in my household. And usually when I ask my husband what he wants to eat, he's kind of like, I don't know. I don't really care. There are very few times where he's like super in the moment, super opinionated. But then like when dinner comes and I'm like, oh, we're having like bratwurst or whatever, he's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Actually, the thing that he's really liking right now are those smash tacos.
Those are so
We
good.
Yeah, we've been eating those, like, once a week recently. So, yeah, I mean, we talked about this in the last episode where I often plan from the recipes that are in my queue because I keep just, like, a smaller segment of recipes in my queue that are typically more, like, family favorite recipes. They're kind of like the go-to fallback on recipes, so I plan at least one recipe from there, and then if I don't have any, like, specific inspiration from, like, Instagram or something I do find a lot of inspiration from Instagram and, like, seeing what people are cooking, like, this week, essentially, right? Because I feel like every week has, like, a different trend, although we've been in pumpkin mode for, like, over a month already.
So just so everyone knows, today is September 26th, and we've been in pumpkin mode for at least a month.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's not even 60 degrees.
Yeah, for real. But other than that, we tend to keep a good amount of stuff in the freezer, and so most of the time, the things that I'm, like, then filling in if I don't have inspiration is just like, "All right, we got some, like, ground meat in the freezer, like, let's figure out what to use with that." And a lot of that is motivated by keeping my grocery list less expensive. So, like, meat is, like, the most expensive thing at the grocery store, and so if I can not have to buy meat for, like, every meal that's on my meal plan, and I know a lot of people don't eat meat at every dinner that
Mhm.
they have, but we usually do. So, if I don't have to buy it for every single recipe, then that's gonna save me a lot of money at the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, out of everything you and I just said that we do, I would say picking recipes you already like is like tops the list. Like,
Yeah.
Don't make meal planning more complicated. We often equate meal planning to any other habit that you start. So let's just pick a habit like you're training for a marathon. Like if you just up and decided to like go run 20 miles on day one of training, you'd never do it again. And so don't pick recipes that are so off the beaten path for your family, or you'll
Yeah.
never meal plan again because you're like, well, this was terrible because you picked something like that took 3 hours to cook or that nobody in your house liked and you wasted it. So kind of equate this to those other habits and start with recipes that you like, that your family likes, and honestly that you know how to make. That's a really great soft entry point, right? Like it's a gentle entry. Like, I know how to make this. I can make this. I can put on a meal plan. Hey, that's meal planning.
I 100% agree. And even this week, I tried a new recipe. It was actually one of the recipes that I shared with you when you asked for meal planning inspiration. It was these like Thai inspired meatballs and coconut rice. And I thought it was delicious. I liked it so much, except for the fact that it's supposed to be a one pot meal and the rice didn't like cook fully. I
Mm.
feel like I have that problem every single time I have a recipe that's like, it's a one pot meal and you just like put all the things and then you put the lid on and then your rice is done in 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, that never happens to me. So, anyways, the rice didn't cook all the way. I still thought it was delicious. And my husband was like, this just like wasn't what I was in the mood for tonight. And I could really see that if that was what you were working with on your first week of meal planning, was that somebody in your household was like, yeah, this wasn't for me. And they only ate like a half a serving, you could feel really defeated.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And that, like, for me, that rarely ever happens. That happens like twice a year that my husband says something like that. And often it is with like maybe flavors that are different than what we would normally be eating. And it's just like, I really like reaching outside of the box. And sometimes he's like, "I just probably would have preferred like something less different."
So, our next recommendation is just to build simply. Like, if you're a new cook, if you're new to meal planning, just start simple. I mean, pick recipes you already like, that you already know how to make, but then just remember that it doesn't have to be extravagant. Meal planning doesn't mean that you have a 5-course dinner every night. Meal planning means that you knew what you were going to make and you had the ingredients to buy it. I'll define meal planning really simply. Like last night, I was gone the entire day, got home around 5 o'clock. And this is most people's normal life, right? Like this is not like this is a bit more rare in my world because I work from home. I'm at home with my kids most of the time. But I was gone the entire day yesterday, and we ended up having rice, salad, and the like air fried chicken wings. The whole dinner was ready in like 30 minutes. It was so simple. It like it, the rice was plain. Like it was nothing crazy. No, nothing wild. And it was just easy. And I just felt like it was one of those things, like it was an example of something simple. Like I didn't turn on my grill. I put the salad in a bowl, like it was just so easy, so simple. Three little building blocks, which is kind of how I make a lot of our meals, like protein, carb, and veggie.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's kind of how I build a lot of our meals.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Next up is the adjustment phase of meal planning. So you've built your foundation. Hopefully, like your first week of meal planning, you're trying to like, you just did the thing, right? Like you just started, you created a simple meal plan. And then now we have to look at like what worked and what didn't last week. And we learn and we adjust. And honestly, this is kind of like what meal planning is forever. It gets a lot easier, right? Like there's less adjusting as time goes on. But I think this is similar to probably all habits, right? Is like you don't ever really stop learning and stop adjusting because you change as a person and your life changes. And so things just have to change with you.
And think of very many habits that don't stay hard. Like
Right.
the habit is that you are used to them and it's a rhythm that you live in.
Right.
But I'm thinking like the gym, like you want it to stay hard. Like, you want to keep pushing yourself. Budgeting, like, unless you just suddenly make gobs of money all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you have to work hard to stay inside of a budget. So meal planning is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just love just like learn and adjust, learn and adjust. And people always say, like, I didn't know adulthood was just meal planning every day until I die. And it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, it's true. You do have to figure out what you're going to eat every day, but like, it doesn't have to feel so daunting.
Totally. So, Riley, what would you say are things that somebody should look for to know if their meal plan worked for them or not?
The first thing that I think of is how stressed out did your meal plan make you?
Mm,
If it was super stressful, then it probably didn't work, because it should, you should have to work a little bit to keep it, as soon as you're building that habit, like you have to kind of work at it. But if it was every meal was super complicated, you forgot to like thaw your chicken every day, you forgot to marinate something you were going to throw on the grill, and if every day it was super stressful, it didn't work. So we got to pivot.
yeah.
And then another thing I thought of is how many nights did you skip what you planned? And now you and I have talked a lot about swapping things around, switching up what night you have things. That is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking we skipped the meal plan, we ditched the meal plan, we ordered pizza,
Yeah.
or we went out for dinner instead. If you did that, 3 feels very generous. Like,
Yeah.
3 feels, like, extreme. Let's say even if 2, if you did that twice, I don't think your meal plan worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't working for you, at least.
I would totally agree. That was one of the things that I thought of, and I was thinking, like, it's really important once you have that realization to then think about, like, why did we totally skip those meals? Was it
Mhm.
because I planned things that we were unfamiliar with and I felt intimidated by the recipe? Is it something that we're totally tired of and we didn't feel like eating anymore? Like, they took the advice of being like, I chose a quote unquote family favorite, but maybe it's like a recipe that we're like done with. Everybody's like, we're kind of over this family favorite. Let's table it for a couple months. Or did you not consider your schedule when you planned those recipes and it was just like a crazy night and you needed one of those like 15 to 30-minute dinners instead? Doing the like why, like, yes, we skipped the meals and then why did we do it? That helps you solve the problem for next week so that you don't do the same thing.
Yep. Yeah, this is how we learn and adjust, right? We look at them and we're like, "Everyone loved that. You know what? Let's have it again next week."
Yeah.
Or, "I didn't even fool with that because I was so tired at 5:30 when I got home. There was no way I was making that hour dinner."
Yeah.
Okay, well, ditch that one and go for something faster and just be flexible. Like just pivot, learn, adjust. These are things we all are doing every week.
Yep. Yeah. And then I also think that it's important to look at how much food wastage you have. If you ended up throwing away a lot of food. It could be because you skipped some of the meals and stuff like that. But also if you tried really hard to stick to your meal plan and you still had a bunch of food waste, consider looking at like what type of serving sizes did your recipes have? Like, did you just buy too much food overall? Did you plan too many recipes and then you ended up with a bunch of leftovers that you didn't put in the freezer? I personally think that it's important to look at food waste because that's also wasted money when we didn't eat that food and then it goes into the trash. Not only is it food waste, but it's like wasted budget as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this happens to me occasionally, and usually I try to get to it right before it goes to waste.
Yeah.
But that's when suddenly we're having the most random lunch,
Mhm.
or the other night I actually cooked 2 dinners at the same time, and one of them went into the freezer because it was gonna go bad otherwise, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm already cooking, I'm just gonna cook this other thing," and to try to just like a little tip to try to, like, save that food waste is if you can just get it cooked, it can prolong its life a little bit longer.
For sure, yeah. And then you can just like you said, you can put it in the freezer and then you have a meal that's like ready to go on one of these other nights when maybe instead you would get takeout.
Let's look at making your meal plan match your lifestyle. So Ronnie already alluded to this just a few minutes ago, when you talked about maybe you didn't plan around your family's schedule. This is a really important piece of the puzzle. I mean, I think this is a really important piece of the puzzle. Like last night, my example with my really simple dinner, I knew I wasn't going to be home until late. I knew I needed it to be fast. And that is how I made my meal plan mine. I looked at my week ahead, and I mean, even today, I have something in the crock pot because I'm not going to be done with my work day until close to 6. I need the dinner to be made for me. I
Mhm.
did the work. I just, it was a long time ago.
Well, so this is kind of like we talked about, I think it was on last episode, we talked about, like using a meal planning template. I I guess what I'm trying to say is to me, like having meal planning match your lifestyle, it's figuring out like what's the anchor, as we've called it in the past, as we learned from Amy Lee. What's the thing that's anchoring your meal plan that maybe is unique to your situation? So, some people, it might be the budget. For some people, it might be a really busy schedule. For other people, it might be children or
Or that they prefer to batch cook on Sunday
right. Yeah.
and not do any work with meal planning or, cooking all week.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think probably one of the most popular ways to meal plan is the idea of like looking at your schedule and making sure that you're planning in accordance of the amount of time that you have. But lots of people also think about like the weather. And that's something that my husband thinks about when dinner comes around is like if it was a hot day, he does not want to eat soup. He will literally, if I made soup, he will make himself a ham and cheese sandwich instead.
Oh,
So I just think there's like that part of that where it's like, maybe you started out with just this like simple, we're planning 2 to 3 meals a day, but or 2 to 3 meals a week. But like as you start to do this like learn and adapt cycle, I think you then start to be like, okay, so what's the thing that's missing or what's the thing that's really influencing me when I'm making my meal plan and start to gear it more towards that. Cause I think that's the thing that's like the lifestyle component. It might be also be something that's more related to your type of personality. So like you said, Riley, like you might be something who just wants to batch prep. You don't
mhm.
want to deal with the cooking during the week. You just want to like reheat and mix and match. Um, you might be somebody who just like cooks off the cuff all the time, right? And so your meal planning isn't so much about recipes as it is like making sure you have the ingredients that you know how to cook with.
And you may not know your meal planning personality, like
Yeah.
like an Enneagram. Yeah, you may not know what your personality type is, and you might need to try a few to see which one works for you.
Hmm.
Like for me, I love I like the batch cooking. Like I cook, but I make 2 and I freeze 1. I don't do that every day. I don't do that every week, honestly, but it is a habit that I have where if I'm making something that makes more, I just freeze it.
Yeah.
And so like but that might not work for you. It might not be the right season of your life. Like it's a lot easier in the winter, when I've got a double batch of soup in the crock pot. So just kind of trying different things and seeing what works well for you. Like if Saturday and Sunday are your down days and you want to try to make a meal prep day, try it. And if you're like, "Oh, well, no, I didn't like it by Friday. It wasn't very good." Just try something different the next time.
Yeah. Very good
But
point.
like still that learning and adjusting.
Mhm. I think the last thing to add in here that might influence your meal planning is like how often are you still grocery shopping? Right? So a couple episodes ago we talked about the idea of like plan once, shop once. And so ideally that's what the goal should be is that you get all of your shopping done in one grocery trip because that's maximizing your time. You're only going to a grocery store once. You're also then not randomly spending extra money at the grocery store. You're not buying extra ingredients that go to waste because they're not included in a recipe because we all know that we don't go to the grocery store and only buy one thing. We always buy like 7 things because
Mhm,
it looks cool or we're like, "Oh wait, we do need mustard," whatever.
mhm.
So I would think also in here is to think about how often you're still going to the grocery store and can you try to continue to reduce that so you're just doing the shop once, plan once, shop once idea.
Planning once and shopping once is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of is like it anchors the budget piece because you are going back a bunch of times and inevitably buying more than you need. You're not wasting your time because you're going back to the grocery store. And it can really be the thing that keeps you on track with your meal plan because you know you have what you need to make the food instead of
Yeah.
you started and realizing, oh no, I don't have this main ingredient.
Right.
Uh, okay, I don't know what to do. Yeah.
So those were our general 3 ideas related to getting started meal planning, creating a foundation, having an adjustment period, and then personalizing it to you. Think that doing the idea of like keeping it simple and just getting started, right? I think we burn a lot of mental calories avoiding things that we know we should do instead of just getting started and taking action on the thing and then
Mhm.
realizing like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I built it up in my head to be. So with that being said, before we move into dinner dilemmas, we just want to like encourage you to do that, to just get started with your meal plan. Don't quit just because it feels hard, right? Like there's lots of things in our life that are hard that we still have to do anyways. And we get over the hurdle of it feeling really hard. And then, you start on that downward slope of like, okay, it's getting easier. I'm getting more used to it. You're in that learn and adjust period. And hopefully, eventually, it just becomes something that you do automatically.
Mm.
At this point, meal plan super automatically. I look at my plan to eat app and I realize, like, okay, we only got maybe one more recipe in this meal plan. Like I need to meal plan because otherwise I'm going to feel very lost in my life if I have to scramble for what's for dinner tomorrow night.
If you're listening and you still haven't planned a single thing, just start today. Start and make your first meal plan today. Plan one dinner, get a shopping list, go see how it goes. And remember that this is hard for everyone, but the habit of it and doing it weekly, because I would say, like, hopefully by the time you get into a routine, you don't do this more than weekly. The habit and the rhythm, it becomes so much easier over time.
Yeah. Yep. Good point. It is not easy all the time for anybody. Just like you
Yeah.
said, you went to make your meal plan this week and you were like, what am I doing? I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Not having energy for it is not uncommon.
Right. All right. Well, let's answer some dinner dilemmas.
All right. Our first dinner dilemma is from Grace. And she says, I don't feel like cooking what's on my meal plan. I don't expect an answer, but that is sometimes my problem. Well, Grace, we're here to give you an answer. I would like to go ahead and also read Sika H, hers, because these are really similar to each other. She said monotony. Maybe not specific to planning. I get comfortable with recipes and I don't want to learn new things and I get bored of the same things. These feel similar. Maybe they're not exactly the same, but they are similar.
They do feel very similar because Grace's problem could be that she's in monotony and she doesn't want to cook what's on her plan because she's in like a planning rut and she's
Yeah.
planning the same things over and over again. So, I mean, I think that this is part of that, what we talked about today, that like learn and adjust thing of like looking back at your meal plan and being like, why didn't I want to cook those recipes? And is it because you were tired of them? Is it because they were too hard? Is it because you were exhausted at the end of the day?
Is it because they don't taste good?
Yeah,
The thing with
totally.
monotony is that they were really good a month ago, but
Yeah.
we eat them every week.
Hmm.
They don't taste good anymore.
Absolutely. And, or yeah, maybe just in general, having a little bit more variety. I'm thinking of right now, like I said, we're in the smash taco era right now. Like we are loving the smash tacos. But the great thing about something like that is like you can have a smash taco like 27 different ways.
You
And
can.
so it's like I can put smash tacos on the meal plan and you can basically just change up like how did you season your meat? What were the things that you put on as a topping? If you're feeling like monotonous, there could be small ways potentially that you could change things up. Like maybe part of the monotony is like some people in your household only want to eat certain things,
Mhm.
right? And like things start to get to feel monotonous, but there's always ways that you could change things up at least slightly.
I'm thinking of my meal planning schedule that I made this summer,
Yeah,
and one of my days was sandwich night.
right.
And that sounds incredibly basic, monotonous, and boring. It does. It does sound
Yeah.
that way.
We weren't just eating bologna.
We were not. No, we didn't have bologna once, although that does kind of sound good. I haven't had that since like you could have a breakfast sandwich. You can have a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. You can have a grilled cheese and soup. You can have, like taking that one idea and really expanding on it and
Yeah,
see it sounds monotonous, but you literally could go an entire year and not have the same kind of sandwich.
that's so true.
So I think like when I don't feel like what's cooking on my or when I don't feel like cooking what's on my meal plan, this is the thing where I say, okay, can I change it? Like, is it something that I can change the flavor of? Like, maybe you plan smash burger tacos and suddenly you're not feeling it. Could you turn that into like a breakfast taco? You could very easily. You could throw that meat you were going to put on those smash burgers into the freezer and you can make breakfast tacos with some scrambled eggs. So you can completely change it. Or you can just swap your meals around. Like
Yeah,
tonight, I don't feel like having lasagna tonight. Okay, what can I have instead? We can have lasagna tomorrow and we can have, like pot roast today. You can do that as long as you plan it earlier in the day or,
yeah,
pivot in the day. Or we can have breakfast for dinner tonight instead of what we had planned. We can just swap these nights around, not
right,
wasting, just moving them around. I feel like when I don't feel like cooking what's on my plan, I just switch the night around.
right. And this is part of the reason that we've talked about so many times in the past of having your like on hand meal that you really like and everybody in your household really enjoys that meal. So that way when nights like these do come around, you're like, good thing we have this pantry meal that everybody loves because that's going to prevent us from getting takeout or DoorDash or whatever. And I'm just going to make that really fast. And we love it. And it's going to be totally fine. The other
Yeah,
thought that I had related to monotony in general is I feel like the season changing of seasons is always a good time to switch up like your whole meal plan.
totally.
Like summer to fall, you just switch things up totally, you know? And I think just in general, like, I don't know. I think like emotionally and everything, like the rhythms of everything, it just feels really natural to switch things up as the seasons are changing. I know that at fall and winter, I often want things that are much richer in flavor, things that are slow cooked, things,
Warming spices and
yeah, things that have more of like butteriness to them, you know? And then like spring and summer, I want like crispy vegetables and things that are like fresh and light. So I think there's just like a natural pivot that you can make there. But also, like after about 3 months of eating similar recipes, I'm done. I'm ready to move on to something else, anyways.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say that very similar to this second one, I get comfortable with recipes and I don't want to make different things either. But then you get bored of them. And so you kind of have to make an active choice to get out of that rut. Like you and I've talked about ruts so often. I think this is pretty common for meal planners
Yeah.
or home cooks. And you kind of just have to force it. You have to say, okay, we are not having smash burger tacos next week. And maybe, I've already said this on this episode. I say this a lot, but text a friend,
Yeah.
ask what we're eating, or look back at meal plans in your plan to eat account from like 6 months ago. What were you eating 6 months ago?
Yeah.
What are your friends eating now? And kind of just like get some different ideas. And honestly, guys, Instagram.
Instagram.
Follow some of your favorite recipe authors. They do change with the seasons. And also it just gives you, even if you're just like, oh, I haven't cooked orzo in a year and a half, like I'll make something with that. It just gives you, even if it's just an ingredient inspiration, it just kind of gets you going in a different direction. So all those ideas would probably help there.
I love it. Okay, Nina says, no matter what I make, my husband will say something about how many dishes I used. When I think it's, while I think it's a small price to pay for the stellar healthy meals I daily put on the table to meet the needs and tastes of our family of six, maybe there's more info on how to reduce slash indicates number of pots to use. I don't know if this is really a dilemma. You may also tell my husband to suck it up, of course. LOL.
I feel like I wrote this about my.
LOL indeed.
Oh, this is so good. I think we could be friends with Nina.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I don't know that I have a solution. My husband likes to cook and clean as he cooks. And I would say this is a very different in our personality. Like he is very like type A and structured and like I'm gonna do the thing. He also doesn't care if food gets cold because he wants the dishes to be cleaned. And I care if the food is cold. I'm like, put that down. We're eating hot food. But I'm like a little bit more like wild in the kitchen, creative, and I like have 65 dishes. And I'm a little bit more like Nina, I think. Like even you just made something that was one pot. Like talk to us about the one pot meal experience. Like, did you actually use less dishes?
Yes. I would say that for a lot of recipes that call for one pot, the experience is that it's generally just like one. And I think the key to it is for me, like getting a big enough
Yeah.
pan.
Hmm.
Like don't just use your regular saute pan for these. I often, even though it's like kind of overkill, I pretty much make any one pot meal in my Dutch oven because I want to like ensure that there's enough room that I can actually like stir the thing instead of like really gently folding so that it doesn't like drip over the edges. In general, I would say it's a pretty successful experience, except for when it comes to this dish with rice. And I think part of the reason that this dish with rice didn't work well for me is because it was coconut rice. And in general, if you just make coconut rice all by itself, it takes a lot longer for the rice to like soak up the coconut milk compared to soaking up broth or water. And so if I were to make that recipe in the future, I would do the coconut rice separately from the vegetables and the meatballs. However, I think that if you're doing, I've made lots of recipes where it's like you saute your stuff or whatever, and then you put in like pasta and broth, and then you like cover it, and the pasta will absorb the liquid. Overall, it's like pretty successful. Sometimes it's like a little saucy, maybe compared to what I think the recipe author was going for. that could be a difference in living at different altitudes. I don't know. But I would say in general, one pot meals are pretty successful. We have quite a few one pot meals in Plan to Eat, just so everybody knows. I was not at Plan to Eat when this happened. Riley did a recipe challenge called One Pot October. And so if you go into the PTE recipes in your account, there's like 30 one pot meals in there. I think there's quite a few of them.
Yeah, there are. I think there's 30. Yeah. Another thought that I had is obviously in the same vein as a one pot meal is a sheet pan dinner
Yeah.
or a pot meal. Definitely for me, when I'm getting into, I have two sides and a main and a sauce I think about the night I make fajitas. There's like 65 dishes to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's the guacamole bowl and the salsa bowl and the cheese bowl and the tortillas have to go somewhere once they're heated and the meat had to be sliced and cooked somewhere and the sauteed, like everything had a different. I just do those a little more rarely. Like I do love fajitas, but I just don't do, they're just nights. I just don't do it every night,
Yeah.
where I have 100 dishes. Like the thing is like, I love that she said it's a small price to pay for the stellar healthy meals. I want to meet this girl.
I love
Stellar
it.
healthy meals I gaily put on the table to meet the needs and tastes of our family of 6. Oh yeah, okay. I like her.
Say
It's
what you're
really
going to say.
hard. It's really hard. Like I don't have it's hard. I get the same thing going on. I'm like, well, I made
Yeah.
this sauce, but it required the immersion blender and the cup, and then I needed to put it in something for storage so that
Yeah.
it can be a lot of dishes.
I agree. One thing that I have been thinking about that I don't know if other people do this or if this is my own like life hack that I have created. But you're talking about your fajitas and the guacamole and the cheese and all of things going in their different bowls. When I make toppings or sauces or condiments or whatever for a recipe, I just make them in a Tupperware.
Mhm.
And then when we're done with the meal, I just put the lid on and it goes into the refrigerator.
Yeah, but you're a family of 2.
Well,
Let's
that's
look
true.
taste of a family of 6. There is a chance that there are no leftovers.
That's very true. That's very true.
Like, I'm just gonna push back on you here because, like, there could be 0 leftovers.
Well, this is my life hack anyways. is
I
that
love
you is that you make your things in containers. You just make it. When I make ranch dressing, I just make it in a container that can put a lid on and go in the refrigerator.
Okay, I just thought of something that helps me. If my dishwasher is empty when I start cooking, it really helps
So true.
because then I don't have to unload the clean dishes and then load in the dirty ones. That's like more work, right? I mean, it is the same amount of work. It's just the when you do it, right? If it's unloaded, and then as I am making things, all the dishes that I use to cook, I'm not talking about serving. I'm not talking about like the pots and pans you have to wash separate.
Yeah.
The random bowls and things that you use, those can just go straight in the dishwasher.
Yeah. Very true. I'm also gonna say
Let's hear it.
I really like this dinner dilemma because I feel like we're getting some opinions on this. I'm gonna say, how about Nina, you and your husband swap roles every once in a while? He cooks and you do the dishes, and we'll see how many dishes he makes.
Yeah, we actually also don't know. Like, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that if he's complaining about the number of dishes, then he probably does the dishes.
That's what I'm meaning. Yeah.
He cooks, he cleans.
Yeah.
So yeah, they should swap roles.
Yeah. I think they maybe should swap roles, and he might find it's harder than he thought to use fewer dishes.
Air quote, make a stellar, healthy meal.
That's his requirements. Make a stellar, healthy meal. Yeah, I like it.
Like as
All right.
minimal dishes as possible.
That's right.
Challenge.
I hope that
Challenge
helps Nina.
Yes. I hope she listens to this episode.
I hope so too. All right, well, that wraps us up for this week. We have one final episode in our Meal Planning Like a Pro series. And next time we are going to be talking to our advanced meal planners. So we have spent a couple episodes talking more about beginner strategies. We're going to talk about some advanced stuff next time. So if you are a lifelong meal planner, hopefully we give you some tips that'll help you or just reinforce your meal planning ideas.
Don't forget that everyone is a lifelong meal planner.
This is, oh, wow. You got me on that one.
Whether you order takeout or make food at home, you're meal planning.
That's true. All right. If you love the podcast, we would appreciate it if you shared it with a friend or family member. That really helps get the word out about the podcast. And Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks.